In a small village in the heart of Ukraine, there once lived a poor widow with her many children. They dwelt in a tiny hut with an earthen floor and walls of clay, and though they had little in the way of worldly goods, they were rich in love and kindness toward one another. The widow worked hard every day, taking in washing and mending to earn a few coins for bread and firewood. Her children helped as they could, the older ones fetching water from the well, the younger ones gathering kindling in the forest. They were a cheerful family despite their poverty, and their little hut was always filled with laughter and song. One summer day, as the children were playing outside their humble home, the youngest came running in with great excitement.
Mama, Mama, come and see. A miracle has happened.
The widow set down her washing and hurried outside, where her children had gathered in a circle, pointing at something on the ground. There, pushing up through a crack in the hard-packed earth, just outside their door, was a tiny green shoot, a seedling that had taken root all by itself.
"What is it, Mama?"
asked the oldest boy, kneeling down to examine the little plant. The widow looked closely and smiled.
"Why, I believe it's a pine seedling. A pine cone must have fallen here and taken root. What a wonderful surprise."
From that day forward, the children tended the little tree with loving care. They brought it water from the well when the summer sun beat down. They pulled weeds from around its base. They talked to it and sang to it, and the little tree seemed to listen and respond, growing stronger and taller with each passing week. By autumn, it had grown as high as the youngest child's knee. By winter, it reached the oldest child's waist. The children were overjoyed, for they knew what this meant.
Mama, when Christmas comes, we'll have our very own Christmas tree. We've never had a tree before.
The widow smiled and hugged her children close. It was true. They had never been able to afford to buy a Christmas tree, nor had they ever found one growing so conveniently near their home. This little pine, growing just outside their door, was indeed a gift from heaven. The children could hardly contain their excitement as Christmas drew near. They talked endlessly about how they would bring the tree inside on Christmas Eve, how they would celebrate with it, how wonderful it would be to have their very own tree, just like the wealthy families in the village. But as Christmas Eve finally arrived, the widow's heart grew heavy. She looked at her children's bright, expectant faces and knew she must tell them the truth.
"My dear ones, we have a beautiful tree, and we shall bring it inside tonight. But I'm afraid we have nothing with which to decorate it. I have searched through all my things, but there are no candles, no colored paper, no ribbons, no ornaments of any kind. I'm so very sorry."
The children's faces fell. The youngest began to cry softly, but the oldest boy put his arm around his little sister and said bravely,
"It doesn't matter, Mama. The tree itself is beautiful. We don't need decorations."
That's right. Just having a tree at all is more than we ever hoped for.
Still, there was no hiding the disappointment in their voices, and the widow's heart ached to see it. That evening, they carefully dug up the little pine tree and brought it inside, replanting it in a bucket of earth. They placed it in the corner of their single room, where it stood green and fragrant, filling the small space with the clean scent of the forest. The children stood around it for a long time, admiring its graceful branches. Then, one by one, they said their prayers and climbed into bed. The widow tucked them in, kissed each one good night, and whispered,
"Tomorrow is Christmas. Even though we have no decorations, we have each other, and we have this beautiful tree. That is more than enough."
But when the children had finally fallen asleep, the widow sat by the fire and wept quietly. She wished with all her heart that she could have given her children a proper Christmas tree, decorated as trees should be, with beautiful ornaments and sparkling lights. She felt she had failed them. What the widow did not know was that the little house had other inhabitants, ones she had not invited, but who had lived there all along. In the corners and crevices, in the spaces between the roof beams and the walls, lived a family of spiders. These spiders had watched the widow and her children all through the year. They had seen how hard the mother worked, how kindly she treated her children, how cheerfully the family bore their poverty. The spiders had grown fond of this gentle family, and now, on Christmas Eve, they had witnessed the children's disappointment and the mother's tears. As the fire burned low and the widow finally fell asleep in her chair, The spiders crept out from their hiding places. They gathered around the little tree, dozens of them, and they held a whispered council.
Did you see the children's faces? They tried to be brave, but they were so disappointed.
And the poor mother. She works so hard, and she wishes so much to make her children happy. We must do something. It is Christmas Eve, a night of miracles. Perhaps we can give them a gift.
But what can spiders give? We have no gold, no jewels, no fine things.
We have ourselves. We have our silk. We have our art. We can give them what we do best.
And so, as the family slept and the stars shone cold and bright outside the window, the spiders set to work. They climbed up the little tree from bottom to top, from the trunk to the tiniest twig. And as they climbed, they spun their silk, beautiful, delicate webs that draped from branch to branch, that hung like lace from every needle, that covered the entire tree in an intricate pattern of gossamer threads. All night long they worked, each spider contributing to the grand design. They wove their finest silk, creating webs within webs, spirals and diamonds, stars and snowflakes, all rendered in thread so fine it was barely visible in the darkness. When at last their work was complete, just as the first hint of dawn was touching the eastern sky, the spiders retreated to their corners and crevices, tired but satisfied. The little tree stood in the dim light, completely covered from top to bottom in spider silk, a white, ghostly thing, draped in veils of web. The widow was the first awake on Christmas morning. She stirred in her chair, stiff from sleeping upright, and opened her eyes. And then she gasped. The first rays of the morning sun were streaming through the small window, striking the little pine tree. But where there had been green needles and bare branches the night before, there was now a spectacle of breathtaking beauty. Every branch, every twig, every needle was draped in delicate lace that shimmered and sparkled in the sunlight. The spider webs had not remained mere silk. As the sun's golden rays touched them, they had been miraculously transformed. Some of the webs had turned into strands of pure, glittering gold, while others shone like polished silver.
Children, children, wake up.
The widow cried, her voice trembling with joy. The children tumbled out of bed, rubbing the sleep from their eyes. When they saw the tree, they stood in stunned silence. It was more beautiful than any tree they had ever imagined, more magnificent than even the king's own Christmas tree. It stood in their humble room like a beacon of light, draped in precious metals that sparkled with every color of the rainbow. The family gathered around the tree, laughing and crying with happiness. They touched the golden strands and the silver threads, marveling at the miracle that had taken place while they slept.
It is a gift for our faith and our love,
Whispered the widow, tears streaming down her face. They carefully took the gold and silver webs from the tree. There was enough to provide for their needs, not just for that Christmas, but for many years to come. The widow never had to worry about bread or firewood again, and the children grew up strong and happy, never forgetting the miracle of the Christmas spiders. And that is why, to this day, people decorate their Christmas trees with tinsel and garlands of gold and silver, to remember the kindness of the spiders and the miracle that blessed a poor family on a Christmas morning long ago. And if you look closely at a Christmas tree, you might even find a little spider ornament tucked among the branches, placed there for good luck and in memory of the tiny weavers who gave their best gift of all,